Hi there, this is Michael Becker, and welcome to May 2022 Becker's Patreon session. With me today is Phil. Hopefully some of the other patrons will show up. What I try to do is every month hold a private session for my patrons so we can discuss their projects, what they're doing. I can show them some of the cutting edge stuff I'm working on. We record this so that the patrons get to see it early, and about a month later, I release it out to the world. So let's just jump right in and talk about what Tinderbox and what we do for our knowledge management. So Phil and I were just talking prior to the kickoff of this call, what he's been working on, which has particularly been managing classes and doing boilerplate reporting. And it just so happens, serendipitously, boilerplate reporting was one of the things I wanted to talk about today. So that's pretty cool. And then Phil, maybe at the end, we can talk about managing classes, if you don't mind, because
Sure.
I just got hired by Cal Poly Paloma to teach a course in the fall. So
Cool.
I'm now starting to put that together and such. And so I want to bounce some ideas off you, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So what I want to show in this file, let me pull up my real one. Okay, is this. So so I recently put on an event over in London. Let me go pull up a browser and I'll show you that. So I was in London last week, and I was putting on an event for the mobile marketing, our mobile ecosystem forum, and we were able to bring together within 6 weeks. We pulled together 25 sessions, over 40 speakers to talk about personal data and identity. And so this is the website where that goes. And what I used to kind of help me manage all of the details for pulling this type of program together was Tinderbox. And so you can see that, we've got our speakers, we have our sessions, we have logos and images and all of these different elements that kind of make up an event. And so while I was going through the program, I figured, I should probably just do all of this in Tinderbox. And it ended up working out really, really well. And I can actually show you my live file here. And it's in a true incremental formalization fashion. It's not necessarily pretty, it's notes that I've dropped in. It's things that I've been thinking about and organizing. And then as I was kind of going through the process, where it really nailed down to was, like, here are the list of people that I spoke to that in, those that are hashed through or lined through, are those that were declined or they wanted a speaking fee and we didn't have the budget for it or something of that nature. Those that are in orange were the ones that I was in progress talking to, but invariably we never got around to. Those that were in are gray were ones that I was thinking I should probably try to get a hold of or have them involved in the event, but we never got them into the in progress stage. And those that are in green are the ones that we actually got involved in the event. And what's interesting is I captured different information about them during the event. So for instance, their name, what session they were involved in, what organization they were with, their email address, their image, and such. Now, when I was doing this as well, this is kind of interesting. As I was going through the process, I would put the speaker in. I would then use action code where I would put in their name and their company, and that process, using my linking function that you may have seen from my other videos, would automatically create a note for that person's name. So let's say I was inviting you to speak for the event. I just go here and I type in the word speaker, and that would create a where'd it go? I'm gonna do it again. I type a word speaker, and that would create kind of a templated note for me. And then I could go and type Phil Schuerman, right? And Phil, and right now, by typing in your name there, all that's going to do is, take the contact information and stick it in the person's name here. Now, here's what was interesting is I have my action code in the background that says, I don't want you to create the note Phil Sherman until I actually put an organization in, because what I want Tinderbox to do is basically organize the person Phil underneath the organization that I enter in here. So Phil, what's your what school do you work for again?
East Tennessee State University.
How do I spell Tennessee again?
You got it. Yeah, you had that right too.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now watch what's going to happen. Now I've entered in East Tennessee State and Phil Schuerman. And when I click away and come back, Tinderbox will have automatically created a note called Phil Schuerman and East Tennessee State. And if I double click on those, it will actually go down and show me, here's East Tennessee State, a new note, and here's Phil Schuerman. Right. And what's your title?
Professor.
Okay. So you can see here, I can go ahead and type in the word professor. Oops. I've got some performance thing I'm working on here that's kicking me out, but let's go ahead. Phil Schuerman. Let's type in professor. Come on. Okay. And then let's say I give you an email address, like at phil@school.org. And I got a title professor. I think that's all I need for this one. And you got your first name. Okay. So you see I've created that person. You'll note that here you've been linked to your speaking engagement there. So now I can kind of pop back and forth to your speaking session. Now let's say you've accepted that's the status, right? So by doing that, what that does is that automatically moves you up into the accepted role. Right. And then we'll automatically turn you green. So that tells me you're green. And all of that's happening through action code. And I can dig into and show you that in some ways. Now, as you're doing an event like this, invariably what you'll end up doing is you'll want to be marketing that event. So in terms of the form of, as we talked about in terms of marketing copy, so you'll see here, I went ahead and said featured speakers. So because you've accepted the event, I can now go here, and this will, what Tinderbox is doing is it's automatically doing a search. If you look here, it's saying go build a list of everyone that has accepted the event, and then wrap their picture into the program. So now if I do that, you'll see here are all the pictures that have accepted the event, and this is you right here because I don't have a picture of you. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And so then I can say, okay, well, let's write some other marketing copy around the event. So let's say, there's the values table. So the table that defines like, why would you want to come to this event? A signature that would want to come, how do you register for the event? The fact that we want sponsors and such. So then what I was doing is I then went ahead and said, okay, now what I want to do is I want to, write my copy for the event, and then where appropriate, pull in different figures like the people, like the include for the footer or the people that I want to include for the event. And then I can go here. So you see here, I'm saying, insert the images, pull in the includes, and here are all the includes for the different types of notes that I want to be pulling into the event. So when I do that, there's the web page for the event. Right. So essentially what I'm demonstrating here is what you're able to do is create notes with assets, and then, create subnotes, and then easily start integrating them into bigger reports. Okay. And we'll break this down as you start to have questions, but I kind of wanted to show you the end game there. Now, let me go fast forward a little bit farther. So now I create notes that look at all the sessions that every speaker is going to be speaking in. So this session is, the meaning of the waters, the convergence of organizational and people-centric approaches to personal data. And you'll see, so it's an analyst briefing, it's confirmed. Here's the title for the event. Here are the speakers that are going to that are associated with the event. Here's the length of that talk. Here are the dates that it's happening. It's on day 1. It's session number 2 of day 1. And then because we're done, if I click on this, you'll see this jumps me to a web page that actually shows me the video where that event happened. Okay, so then we can actually go ahead and play the video.
100 times a day.
Okay, so got it. Now, with that in mind, which is interesting, is now and then I've wrapped and then I've identified a number of terms. Identity management, meaning of the waters, organizational centric approach, people centric approach that are related to this event. Okay, or to this talk. Now, what I want to be able to do here, now I've turned them off because of performance issues. Let me show you. Watch this. If I go hashtag. Now, behind the scenes, what you're not seeing, entity, yeah, sponsor, and I think event. Yeah, I think that should be enough. Okay, what you're not seeing behind the scenes is I have other attributes that I have Tinderbox automatically populating. So what's happening here is two couple things, and then I have terms. Yeah, so I'll put the terms and the notes in here, and then I have built myself a template. Let me show you here. I've built myself a template that basically says, when you run this template, I want you to go and clear out the hashtag list, look at every term, remove all of the spaces in each of the terms, and then lead that term with a hashtag. And then I want you to take that hashtag element and do it, and also grab the terms for the event. So if I show you here, there's the terms that are specific for this particular talk, and then there are the terms that are related, related to the event overall. There's also the sponsors that are related to the event. You see that?
Yep.
Okay. So by doing that, look what happens. I then go ahead and say, okay, who are the event sponsors? And then I want you to do the same thing. Pull in the company names from the speaker organizations. I then want you to go ahead and then put an @ as opposed to a hashtag on that element. So why am I doing all of that? Well, the reason why I'm doing that is this. So I now the event's done. I want to now be able to go out and email all of these speakers with their basically I want to send them their URL to their speaking talk, but I want to make it quick and easy for me, right? But also not do I just want to send them the email or the link. What I also want to be able to do is I want to be able to remind them the description of their talk. I want to give them the title of their talk again. And I also want to give them the hashtags for their talk, so that it will make it easier for them to be able to promote their participation in the event. So essentially, I use the template to create this hashing and anchors of the talks. And then I just wrote a template email, which basically says, hi, first names, thanks for all your great work last week. Here's your video, here's your session, here's your description, here are the hashtags. Okay. And again, we'll go through this a little slower in just a second. Now watch what happens. If I'm now going to apply it to this event, you'll see here's the email address for the two people that were speaking in the event. Here's the subject line of the event. And then here's the template. Hi, Michael, Tim. Thanks again for the great work. Here's your video. Here's your session title. Here's your description. And then here's all the hashtags. We hope you share this on your LinkedIn profile and with your marketing team. So now they can just grab this, paste it into a LinkedIn post and socially promote the event. Reduces the work for them. If they want to change it, they can, but it makes it easier for them. Make sense?
Yep.
And then watch this. So all I need to do now is I hit copy. Now I'm sure there's going to be ways to make this even better. But I did this yesterday in like about an hour. So now if I paste this in, I now can copy their emails. I now can copy the subject line. I remove the space, reformat the text, and now I can hit send. And so now I've got a templated report, a templated function that made it really super easy for me to be able to update all the speakers. So what's your immediate reaction when you see something like that?
Well, that's nice. see other uses for that kind of thing where you're sending the same kind of information to various people. But I have two questions. One is kind of a backup. In all your files, you have some real common things you do every time, some of the behind the scenes engine stuff. Do you have a template that you start from every time you create a new file so that all that stuff comes in and you don't have to recreate it? Or do you?
Well, yes and no. I have a, as of today, I only probably work on about 4 or 5 files right now. I do most of my work in 4 or 5 different files, and I'm just continuing to refine them. One of the ways that has improved that for me, for example, is I've figured out ways to run multiple projects in one file. And here's an example of a textbook that I've been writing. And so if I go to here, so here are chapters 7, 8, and 9 for the textbook. The other chapters my co-writers wrote. So I just focused on these 3. And you'll see here, for example, what I've figured out is I've working on a strategy called Project ID. And so what ends up happening is, in this context, so for example, the project ID is the parent. The project ID is the parent. So what now because I've done that, what this particular agent's doing, take a look at this. So what this agent is doing is if I look at its rule, or did I do it in an edict? Did it in a rule. Okay. So this agent is going out and essentially saying, go get me, all of the terms from descended from ID project agent, go grab all the image files. Okay, so what that's doing here then is it's going through, and because this and this is a really unique way of doing agent work. So I've got an idea called project ID, and the project ID is being inherited from the parent. So if we look at the ID number here for this thing, you'll see the ID number is 54. And the project ID is 54. So this agent is related to note 54. So by doing that, what that now allows me to do is say, hey, agent, go grab all of the images, because that's what P media is. Go grab all of the images from the descended from the note whose project ID is that ID. Okay, now, so when you ask me, like, am I templating files? No, I'm not as much templating files as I'm templating functionality. So for example, let's say I want to now go do this, and I'll just copy this whole thing to make it quick. And I'll go, let's call this number 13, and we'll call this a test. All right. And I'm just doing it this way because I don't want to, I don't know what I don't remember exactly what I might have set up. So you see here, chapter 13, its rule says, the project ID is me, right? It's my ID, right? And this note and this agent saying, okay, go get the project ID here from here. So if I go ahead and run, go ahead and update the agent, you'll see that, in just a second, when the agent's done running, all of these notes are going to disappear because, or I'll just delete them now, because there's no image there. Now let's go ahead in chapter 9, find ourselves an image. And now we're going to drop this into chapter 13. Okay. So now this image similarly also has project ID being inherited from the parent. And so now if I go run that, you'll see now the agent's only going to pull that image related to this chapter. So essentially for the book now, what I've been able to do is set up a templated method for an agent to be able to go and pull only the images that are related to that chapter. And part of the reason why I'm doing that is I'm using it to I'm using it to configure the chapter numbering. So what the agent's doing is, if you take a look at this agent here, what it's now doing is it says make the outline order equal to the outline order original equal to the outline order, and now then make the caption order equal to the sibling order of this agent. So that way I then use this caption number for that figure, so that when I go print that chapter, I'm guaranteed to have, because this figure is now being used in 2 different chapters. So when I'm going to go print that chapter, the figure number is going to be reconfigured for wherever it is in the outline order of that particular chapter. And when I go print this chapter, that caption number will be reconfigured for whatever order it's in within this chapter. And so to your question, do I have a templated standard format? Not really. What I do is I have templated standard, elements that I will use. And then part of the reason why I do it that way is as I incrementally am working across the 4 or 5 common projects I have, invariably I'll iterate on a part of the file in one file and not in another. And because I'm using standard, I've started to standardize on attribute naming and file structure. Like other elements that are very consistent in my file structure is I have what I call a resources folder. And the resources folder is where you will always find my terms, my figures that I'm not actually using in a particular project, any company names, any entity names, any people. So that way, all my kind of any of my action code that's going to be pulling information from common things like quotes, terms, entities, people, regulations, specifications. Those are in the resources folder. And I define resources as things that other notes will want to draw from. And that's kind of my standardization method.
So if you're going to create a new file that's going to use some of the same action code and the same concepts, you just copy the templates over into the new file?
Yeah, so and that's how I created. So like this one, I showed you in this other file today, where I was actually managing this event for my client. Literally 15 minutes before this call, I just pulled over these 2 directories, and actually let's do it in real time and I'll show you. All right, let's say I want to quickly recreate this functionality in a brand new file. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way. We'll create a brand new file. And typically, and again, because I know my action code so well, I kind of generally know what's going to happen. So let's say I go here and so right out of the gate, I know what I need is, and because I've already done it for this one, actually, I'll do it like this. So right out of the gate, I know what I know what I'm going to need in this file is I'm going to want some prototypes, common prototypes. So I'll come in here and I'll say, I'll add the prototype folder by adding in person, and I'll add the template folder by adding in HTML. I'll then go ahead and hit outline like this. So now I have the prototypes folder and I have the HTML. And so then for this particular one, I know I need speakers. I know I need session. I know I need speaker session. So I'm going to copy those over. So I know I need those 2. And I know I need, do you see entity? I know I need person. And I know I need, where's my entity?
Entity right above posts.
There you go.
Right there.
Right. So this file has those items, right? And so then what I'll go through and I'll say, okay, and my person one's a little bit different than the standard one, so I'll delete that one. Then I'll go in and I'll have it automatically. I'll then go through and create the attributes that I need to have the file regenerate. I won't do it now, so we don't take the time. All right, and that doesn't take that long. So I'll just go through and regenerate those attributes. And then this is where the idea of functions come into play, which is really important. So for this particular file, here are the, So for this particular file, I'm going to definitely need, I don't need this one. I just copied it accidentally. I'm definitely going to need this one. Damn it. Okay, I'm hitting the wrong key. I'm going to need these 3 function files. So now I'll go in and I'll say built-in hints. Sorry. Built-in hints. And I'll paste those. So there are the three functions that I know I'm going to need. And these are like the three that I need in every one of my files, because these are the linking, that automatic linking functionality that I do. I think you've seen that before.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that's the basic setup, right? And then invariably, I'm going to need my TBX config file. So I'll copy that over as well. So now I've got, so now I basically have my, my setup. I'll go ahead and pop in my separator like that. Okay. And so then once I have that, and it's really important when you're doing something like this that you do want to make sure your attributes are set up. So we'll go ahead and quick some of these up real quick. So that's a set. So I'll just go like that. That's a set. Program is a set. Session is a string. Status is a set. String. URL. This context is a set. String. String. Boolean. String and string. Okay, now you'll see here too, part of my convention where he says is has bio. If it says is has, I know that's a Boolean. Right? If it says something like, I'll show you in session in a minute. It says something like number, it's this. And because of my scripts, I know contacts are always set. I know status is always a set, right? So because I know what my action code is like. So if I go here, similar thing, I'll now go ahead and get these that are missing or that are created. So an abbreviation, a type is a set. A layout, speaker is a set. Speaker count is a number. So anything that's like count, I know is a number. Length is always going to be an interval number. It tells me it's a number. Cumulative. So cumulative or length, I know is an interval, especially if it's associated with time. And then here's that is thing again. So I know that these are Booleans. Right. So now I'm able to quickly get my attributes reset up on the file. So because I've done that now, I can go over here and copy in those other existing files. And watch, I don't know if you noticed, it happened pretty fast. But you'll notice that Tinderbox immediately created a resources folder for me. That wasn't there before, remember?
Right.
And look, it's already pre-populated terms, all of the entities, and the people. Because what it did is it looked at the action code, looked at these people and started creating those notes and the linkages that I knew I needed and wanted. Right. And now, and again, because I trust my code, what I could do is, let's say now, you know what, I don't want it creating now new records of these because I've already been populating the values for these people and the other note. What I can do now is I can go over to the people's directory here, copy the people's directory over, delete this one, paste in the new people's directory from the other file, and Tinderbox will recognize the one that has all the data. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And so you can see it's actually pretty easy to set up a new set up a file with code that you already know. The nice thing about doing that, by the way, too, when you do that, you start realizing and you'll start seeing things that, like, I don't know why. I don't know why it's linking these sessions right now. And I have to, I think I do know why, actually. But I'm starting to see that the code's doing stuff that I'm not exactly sure where it's happening. So now because I've ported stuff over into a smaller file, I can debug my larger files in this process.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how you do that.
Okay.
You know, and to your point, if you have like a course or a class, you can create a stable template that you would reuse or open all the time. But I just find, because I work in just these primary 5 files now, basically my book, my articles, my courseware, any kind of what I call my pipeline, you know, my sales pipeline and events management stuff. Those are the primary files, and my doctorate, of course. And you know, and again, because I do it every day, all day, I'm aware of and I know where stuff is. When I lose stuff, there actually is an application called Foxtrot. This is a really good app. Let me find it. I'll pull it up real quick. So Foxtrot is a XML search utility.
Yeah, I have that.
Right. And so, and for those that don't know it. And so what Foxtrot's going to do is it can go through and search the XML of your files, including Tinderbox. So here are, you know, it's basically found all of my XML files, and it's looking for the term mobile. Right. So some people talk about, you know, like, you know, how can I figure out where that stuff is buried in my Tinderbox files? Well, first and foremost, I'm going to argue, how is that any different than your Word documents or your Excel documents? In fact, I find using Tinderbox is a lot easier to do cross-file search than, say, my Microsoft Word docs, right? Because of tools like Foxtrot.
Yeah,
So, go ahead.
I'm just going to say it's incredibly powerful for finding stuff that gets buried from years back. Yeah. You know, occasionally I have to do a recommendation for a student from 10 years ago, and where the heck did I save all the information on that student?
Exactly.
And so, I can find it that easy.
So yeah, so from a templating perspective, then, you know, this is, you know, it's I don't want to say it's nuanced, but you think about it. I want the information, and here's my other thought process on this. I want the information that is going to be commonly reused across other notes in one place, and that's my resource folder. So like when I go to my people, you know, that's where their email address is going to be. That's where their phone number is going to be. This is information I'm going to want to pull into other notes. You know, when I go to companies, their headshots, their images, their videos, that stuff I'm going to want to pull into other notes. So these are my, what I call resources, are kind of like those reusable elements that I know I'm going to be able to want to use for, like, if I'm writing multiple articles, you know, that the terminology, I only want to define that term once, and then I want to reuse it in other articles down the road. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then when I actually do work, like, okay, in this event, I'm now going to pull that person in. And so that's why I have this prefix element too, called speaker. So this is a really important insight that I had is, so I've got this person called Michael Becker, and here's Michael Becker. Let me go open up the entities folder. So resources. The one thing Tinderbox doesn't do, if you notice, it took me to Michael Becker, but it didn't take me in the outline to Michael Becker. I've talked to Mark about this a little bit. I'm not really sure what the resolution about it is, but I know where Michael Becker is. So if I have that part of the outline open, now that I have that part of the outline open, if I go here and I click on Michael Becker, no, still won't. It's fine. I now need to go and find it. So it takes me to the note, but if I want to see it in the outline, I've got to go find it. I can't remember where I put that. Oh, here it is. Okay. So there is that Michael Becker, right? So I now can navigate back and forth between those people. And here's the thing. Michael Becker as a person is a unique note, and I will only have one Michael Becker in my file. Now, if I meet somebody else called Michael Becker, I may have to change that process, right? Michael Becker 2 or but my goal is to make sure that an individual's name is absolutely unique. And I haven't, and so far in my process, I've not, met people with multiple names yet, which is kind of odd and interesting. But when I'm now using Michael Becker as a speaker, I put a prefix to speaker, Michael Becker, and then comma, the event that they're speaking in. Because I also may want Michael Becker to speak in a different event that I'm working on. So it's going to be speaker Michael Becker, this event. And so that way I take special effort to try to ensure that every note has a unique name. Okay. And that's why when I was in this context, if you remember when I put your speaker, when I put you in here, I go like this, and that was done in that other note. We'll go down here. Here's that new note. That's why if you notice, if I now type new person at new co, right? This note's name doesn't actually change until I give it the person name and the company. So I actually have in the context of speaker, I don't personally enter in the name. I let Tinderbox do it. Right. So that way I'm guaranteed that this speaker person is unique. And then that also too, I can pull from, I have Tinderbox because these notes are populated. I can pull from Tinderbox all of the different speaker names or potential people that I might want to be involved.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So I find that to be a, by the way, I put your name in my real file. I better go remove that before I mess myself up.
Having given a talk I never gave.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you credit for talking everything. Session.
So that particular part would be real useful for me because I have my classes with students and then I also advise students. And instead of having to enter a student's name twice, I could just enter it once and copy it.
Correct.
Into 2 files.
Correct. And that's the whole linking strategy. So
Yeah.
and then and that works too for your assignments, right? So you have a student in one place and then that student's associated with different assignments.
Yep. Cool.
Okay. And then again, the beautiful thing about that is then when you're, when you could have a grading template, for example. And so similarly here, if I go now open up this preview pane, right? In this case, my grading template is this, in this case, it's okay. Here's an example. So I've not pulled in this note. I didn't pull into this version, the template. So now I realize, oh, okay, that's right. I forgot to get the template. So let me go here. I go over to my templates folder. I go here and I say, yeah, that's right. I forgot to get the share speaker video template. So then I go down in here and I drop that template in here. And then when we go up here, it now shows.
Yeah, cool.
Right. So it's pretty easy, right? When and you're like, oh yeah, why? Oh, here's another great example. Where'd the first names go? Oh, that's right. I forgot when I was pulling this over to create the attribute first names, and first names is set. All right, and now first names is there. Right, and the reason why first names is there is I have action code running in the background that says make the first names equal to the links.inbound speaker first name. So what this code is just basically saying is if you have a note linked to that person, that speaker's name, I want you to go out and if that link type is speaker, I want you to go out and grab the first name from that note and pull it into this one. Right. So for example, if I went and, if I edited first name here, it would get over, and I'll do it right now. Watch this. So if I go first names. So if I edited first names on this note here to blah, 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 it's going to work for a couple seconds. And then what will end up happening is it automatically gets changed because that's getting pulled from this note. And that's the point of that. So occasionally when you're doing it this way, you're like, dude, I just edited that. Why did that not happen? I'm like, oh yeah, that's because this is not a resources note. This is a tail note, not a dog note.
Right.
Right. So I need to, so then what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I got to go to Andrew Budd and then change his first name here and then go back to the session. And you'll see now that that's changed and it will be consistent. And that's why, and that's another reason why this linking, these linking capabilities are really nice, because you can jump between notes very quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other thing you can do too is if you don't want to jump between the note, you just go like this, and then make the change that you want to make. Right. So what I'll invariably find when I was getting ready to do the emailing yesterday, I'm like, oh, you know what? I never populated, here's a great example. I'll do this one, like this one here, go like this, and you'll see Michael, Tim. Okay. Yet another attribute that's missing. Okay. So created that, go here. Now I got the email addresses, but imagine if I hit here and it's Michael, Tim, but I only have one email address. Why do I only have one email address? Because the note Tim Green doesn't have an email, right? So that will remind me to go populate Tim Green with an email. So it's not a fully automated, press a button and have my bacon and eggs, made perfectly for me every morning, but it is that incremental formalization method. And the nice thing about that is, now that I've gotten to the end of the event and I saw that while in preparation for the event, I got busy, wasn't properly populating all of the information I needed at any given moment, not the end of the world, because at that moment when I actually do need that additional piece of information that I neglected to put in the first place, I can go back and put it in. But now that I've put it in, next time around, when I do another event for those people, that information's there. So, I find that this process gets you pretty much 85% of the way there. And then in the given moment or in a given context, you've got like 15% of your time is cleanup, depending if you've embraced the process along the way.
Right.
If you didn't embrace the process along the way, or it's the first time you're doing it, maybe at the end of that round, 60% of your time's cleanup. But the next time you do it, that 60% starts going down to 15%. But I've never gotten better than 15, 20% cleanup. Just because that's me. I get busy or I make errors or typos or something like that, and I just invariably have to fix them.
I think that's most of us. I don't think that's unusual that when you're busy people, there's a certain percentage of stuff you're not going to get done.
Well, yeah, and what
absolutely have to.
On that note, I spent so much of my time, my life, beating the crap out of myself for not being accurate or not doing it right. And invariably, what I'm finding is, to your point, we're all the same. We all put our pants on in the morning. We all, or our dress, or whatever it may be, whatever we choose to wear that day, right? None of us are really that different, and we're all as equally good and competent and capable in any given moment. And that's kind of so Tinderbox has really been quite a bit of a relief for me, as to really kind of help me see that, actually I'm okay.
Yeah, it's just developing that process so you get where you want to be, that you're not going to be there at the start.
Right.
I mean, and you do this, but when I talk to my students about writing, the first draft you give me ought to be just nothing spelled right, not formatted, just your ideas.
Right.
And then we talk about your ideas, and then in the next draft, and it's the same thing going on here. Each time you're refining what you're doing.
Right. I wish I had teachers like you when I grew up. I didn't really understand that until probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Well,
and then I couldn't really do it until I'd say about this year, last year.
I teach mostly senior level and graduate students, and they still have not had that until they get into my classes. And
you remember I'm over 50, and they're 20, they're 20 somethings or early 30s. So you're a grace of God when it comes to that.
But I don't call that growing up anymore. When I think growing up, I think K through 12. So
yeah,
and K-12 through 12 is still not doing that.
Yeah,
they're actually giving them a formula to write.
Right. And the reality is that formula invariably, when it's, as they say in any, in the military example, the first shot, your battle plan goes out the door.
Yeah. All right. Yep.
So that's what I've been working on. Now, how do we deconstruct this a little bit? I mean, some of the key elements are, obviously attributes. Obviously, for me, I found this linking methodology really, really important. And to be able to do things like this, right? So I've created a bunch of terms, and now I want to use those same terms and reproduce them as social media hashtags. And you can easily do that by just saying, for each term, so term.each, I want you to first remove the spaces. So for those that are watching this in the future, here's the logic. So term.each says, so let's go to this note here, and you'll see that, okay, the items in this term are identity, meaning of the water. So everything separated by a semicolon is a unique value or unique element of this set. And so term.each says, pick identity first, go process it. And then when you're done with that, go to the next one, go to the next one. And the .each function will go through every item in that set or list. So what's happening here then is it's saying, term.each. So for identity, for meeting the waters, for personal data, I want you to first take the X. So when term.each passes a value, in this context, for the first time, that first X is equal to identity. The next X will be equal to meeting of the waters, right? And so each term in the set will be processed as a value X. So I could have easily said, term dot, this X is arbitrary. I could have said term.fill. Whoops. Right, this is whatever works with you. And then I just base, so fill equals fill dot X dot that, right? So this is that X is just an in situ variable that that works for you and in your logic. Okay, so I say term dot X equals X dot replace, and what I'm doing here is I'm replacing the space with nothing. So I'm taking a word like meeting of the waters and getting rid of all the spaces. I then say put a hashtag in front of it. And so by doing that, when I go here, you'll see that, okay, and now watch this. If I go here, hashtags. I have to create it because this is a new file that we brought over. It's a string now, right? Yeah, string. Okay. So now here's the other thing too, from a performance perspective. I'm not putting this, if you notice, I put this action code in the template, not in a rule or not in an edict. And I originally had all of this code in a rule and an edict, and I found that it was slowing down my file in a big way. Because what Tinderbox was doing, and not only that, I had the display attribute visible. So Tinderbox was running in the behind the scenes as a rule or an edict, repopulating this field every 15 to 20 seconds, which was slowing the hell down of my computer down. And then it dawned on me, well, wait a minute, I don't actually need this information created unless I'm getting ready to print, because I'm not going to use the hashtags in any other reason other than producing the report. So now watch this. If I go hit preview, the action code behind the scenes has now been run. Whoops. I had a little crash. That's okay. It's probably missing an attribute it wanted. Okay. Let me do that again. You'll see the action code got run by the file, and then populated that for me. Okay, so that's part of the nuance too, is when you get to this level of using Tinderbox, you're going to wanting to be thinking about the performance elements of, where is it appropriate to use that code or not? Because if I've got 10,000 notes on, I don't need Tinderbox every 15 seconds repopulating the hashtag file. I only need it when I want to run the template. Okay, and that's kind of an important little nuance that I found during the process. And initially I was getting angry at Tinderbox, and then I realized, well, I'm just making it's not Tinderbox's fault. It doesn't need to be doing that. I'm wasting CPU effort, you know, in a thing. And it's even on an M1 Max, when you get to files like I have right now that have 4, 5, 6,000, 10,000 notes, you know, every calculation matters even on an M1 Max. So therefore, then if we go down to here, the template's actually pretty easy. You know, I'm asking it to process the hashtags. I'm then asking it to produce, you know, and go grab, like, now I wanted to, now this was another little nuance that I had too. I've got all the sponsors for an event. So when you know, and here's the other thing too, like I'm being a little, when I want them to promote the event, I don't want them just promoting, let me do it in the real file so you can see the results. When I'm wanting them to promote the event, I don't want them just to promote themselves, but I also want them to promote the sponsors of the event. Right. So I'm going to pre-populate in that list for them, but I also need to make sure that their company name gets promoted. Right. So in the case of like Andrew's, so his list is going to be a bit different because his company name is going to be inserted. Right. And so what's happening here is in the template, I'm saying, okay, now go and grab the entities from the speakers, go grab the organization name from the speaker or any of the speakers related to this thing, and then drop the @anchor tag to their list. So what this does is it actually customizes that hashtag list, not only for the terminology used in that session, but also for the companies that were related to that session. And then the template just becomes pretty easy. Okay, so that front matter, and one of the things I woke up with thinking this morning is I'm going to use a command line in on the Mac OS, and I suspect I can actually send these emails from Tinderbox using a command line. So I'll use a run command that says package up this email and push it out to, you know, go email it for me through the email command line on the Mac. So that's going to be the next thing I'm going to play with over the weekend. But essentially, because I don't have that yet, I'm saying, all right, hey, Tinderbox, for now, put the emails at the top of the email, put the subject line on the top of the email so I could easily copy and paste it. And then just here's your template. Thanks for the great work. You know, stick in the URL, stick in the types, stick in the title, stick in the description, stick in that hashtag list. See you later. And you could easily do something similar like this for your reports. Now your action code may be a bit different. How you want to manipulate your attributes may be a bit different, but the functional concept is exactly what you were talking, you know, asking for in the beginning. You know, I want to be able to do templated reports. And the reason why, and again, here's another important concept. I didn't know I wanted to do this 6 weeks ago when I started the project. Right? I didn't know I wanted to do this until yesterday when the event organizer, you know, published the URL for the for all the videos, and I said, and then I asked them, who's going to send out that URL to the speakers, and they're like, oh, we got another event going on, we're too busy, we'll do it later. And then I realized, well, I've already got all the information already in Tinderbox. Let me go quickly build this template, which took me about an hour and a half, and so I had it done within 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. But now, and now I've got the template that I can now use for all future events and programs that I want. So that's again, the power. Once you have the information in Tinderbox, you then get comfortable to realize I can remanipulate, transform, leverage, and reuse that information, you know, yet in some unknown future project that I'm not even aware of yet. So was that helpful at all?
Yes. Yes. It gave me a lot of ideas.
Okay. So obviously if you end up with any, let me ask you my question then too, if you don't mind. If you end up getting stuck with any, you know, coding examples, linking examples, templating examples, you know, feel free to reach out to me at any time. But on a personal note, let me ask you this. So I've actually not taught a 15-week course before. My teaching's always been like these 6-week cohorts and stuff. And let me pull up the file. So what I did was, here's my textbook. So what I did was I'm starting to prepare my Paloma course. And so I got their holidays. So here's the holidays, and I just stuck the holiday schedule in the event. I then went ahead and created a note for each of my 29 lectures that I'll be giving over that 15 weeks. And actually what's interesting is I first created the first 2 weeks. I then created a stamp. So I'll show you as an example of that here, right? So in order to go from week 1 to week 2, what I did was, so I had, all right, here are the first 2 days of the event. First day the class starts, another class the next 2 days later, right? So then to create this, what I did is I quickly created a stamp. I copied that, pasted that. So now I've got these weeks again. And then if I apply that stamp, it now becomes, hang on, let me apply it again. Wrong one. If I apply that stamp, you'll see now these two becomes week, 3, 4. Let me do it again because I did it twice. So I go like this.
So let me ask you a question. You just teach 1 day a week, or?
No, it's 2 days a week. So yeah, but the reason why, and then see how now it goes, week 2, week 3. So the reason why, so the beginning got a little weird because this week it starts on a Thursday. And at least in my mind, I wanted weeks to be complete. So Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. So, like week 1 is like a half a week. Okay. So if I go like here, so that way, so here's week, just if I grab week 2, for example, if I go like this, and I say, I now want to make the dates for week 2. So I'm basically saying start date equals start date plus 7 days, end date plus 7 days, and then increment the week numbers. Then I do that. And now I've got, apply. And then I'll get my week 2 and 3. Oh yeah, I did it twice. I'm sorry, it was slow. I was trying to move too fast. And so I did it twice. So it immediately incremented and jumped to week 4 and lesson 6 and 7. So that, and obviously I could automate that, but I found that was like the quickest way for me to get my dates right, the length of my schedules, and now I'm going to go populate it with what themes do I want to be talking about in each week. And then because I'm doing this in my textbook Tinderbox file, I can actually link each section to that part of the book. And then I'm also going to use it as part of my syllabus. So I'm now building my syllabus out as I do that. So do you have any other recommendations in templating strategies? So presumably, there's going to be grading here, grading strategies, other kinds of things. Do you have like I'm sure Paloma's got stuff too, but do you have like a recommended syllabus you use, homework assignment, formats?
So yeah. Syllabi have become really complex. It used to be, you gave the lecture topics, reading assignments, but you're gonna want to put in there, your basic policies.
Yep.
So, what do you do if you have late assignments? Do you or don't you count attendance? And if you do, how you do that? We also have a boilerplate that we put in every syllabus that points students to various
resources.
I put that at the end. I've found that I have to check that every semester because links and stuff they put in there get broken because they change stuff and don't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's called really adversarial interoperability.
Right.
Even at that level, you were trying to interoperate with the school, and even amongst your own institution, you have got some adversarial interoperability.
Yep. An overall description of the course with now, and I don't know how they address their regional and if the program is accredited, but accreditation.
It's a state school. It's Cal Polytechnic Technology Paloma. Right.
So they got to be regionally accredited. So they have certain basically learning outcomes that they have to Yep. So you got to list those and tie
So,
those.
and
to
by the way, in the
lectures.
chapter too, so in the book, let me show you that. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine.
This is what we did too. I really enjoyed it. Writing a book actually teaches you so much. It's not even funny. Where is my, oh, here it is. So, so for example, this is the other, here's another Tinderbox example. So I've got each of my different learning objectives for this particular chapter. And I've got a template called include bulleted chapter learning objectives. So when I preview it, here are the learning objectives. Right. And then what I was able to do is Tinderbox doesn't like parentheses in the name because that's a coding issue. So if I put brackets in the name, when I run the template, it swaps the brackets into parentheses. So it actually prints properly. And then if you notice here on the linking, I've got each learning objective linked to the course objective. And so then that all of that automatically gets through action code or associated. So now when I'm doing that, I can say, okay, understanding the meaning of the waters concept is linked to course outline number 2, objective number 2. And course line number 2 is evaluate technology strategies and tools in mobile marketing.
So you're going to want to check their expectation for syllabi, but most places now they want that very kind of thing on the syllabi. So each lecture, each assignment, each exam is linked to certain learning outcomes and objectives.
Got it. Okay. Super helpful. And again, hopefully, as we're talking about here, clearly Tinderbox is a useful tool for, making that more automated.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. And I'm all of that I've had done because I had never thought about putting it in Tinderbox, but I'm starting to put it in Tinderbox, and and one of the advantages of doing that is as I move it in, I go, well, that really shouldn't be worded that way, or that really shouldn't be linked to that, or so it's actually helping me kind of refine some of that stuff for my syllabi, hopefully, so I don't know how much of that students really read.
No, but again, though, it's as much, if not more so for you. Right. Because you're the one that has to teach it. So, it makes you more efficient and more effective. Yeah. So what other recommendations would you have for me?
Well, so are your exams going to be traditional fill in the blank, multiple choice, true, false kinds of things? Are they going to be essay exams? Are they
yes,
going to be
both?
Okay. So for your essay exams, some kind of rubric for the criteria you're going to use for the essays. And I actually give the students the rubric in advance so they know what they're supposed to do. And then I use that rubric to grade it. And I can actually, I showed you that when we did the first video. And I haven't changed that too much because that also gets tied into learning objectives. Certain criteria meet certain learning objectives. So at the end, I can document it. If the crediting, when we get a site visit, they ever come and say, well, how do you know students are getting this? And I go, well, here, it's part of my grading rubric, and here's the typical scores on that. So that kind of thing all ties together. The one thing you might think about is, and you may not need to get so granular, but if you're going to teach this multiple times, for each week, you might want to put the day. And so you can note how far you got each day, so you can plan better in the future, but also so you can, I, again, print out a version of that and give that to students in addition to the lecture topics that are in the seminar. But I do a lot of team-based stuff, so they're working on projects most of the time during class. My lectures are offline recorded videos that they watch, and I give them I write out notes, which eventually will probably be a textbook. And they're supposed to view that, and then there's a quiz every week on that. And then in class, they work on specific projects in groups. And I give them a problem to solve or some kind of team writing exercise. And so I plan what days they're going to be working on which one of those. And that often gets split during the week. So sometimes splitting out the week will you might find useful for your planning and then for letting them know what's happening.
Nice. So Chuck, we started at 6 today. Sorry. So we've been at it for an hour.
Yeah, my calendar was confused with your email stuff. So if I'm coming in too late, I'll just drop out.
No. You're welcome to stay, and we will. Yeah, we've got I've got about 20 minutes before the next meeting, but we can. And I've recorded this, so you'll get a copy of that recording once we're done. But
Okay.
really quickly, what we were talking about was, basically how to leverage Tinderbox for pre-configured templates when you want to be doing, reporting, or, in my context, I was sending out, and I'll show you really quickly, you'll get it super fast. But what I was doing here is I was recently put on an event. And so I had, tons of speakers and potential speakers that I spoke to. And those speakers, and I captured information about, what sessions they were talking about, what their email addresses are, who they were. And then once the event was done, and here's all the sessions, the 25 sessions we had during the talk, during the conference. And then once the event was done, we got a URL that related to their talk. So each speaker could have their video.
Yep.
So then what I wanted to do is to make it easier for me, because I already had all of this information in one place. I said, well, what I want to do is I want an email template that will make it super easy for me to grab the title, the description, their event URL, so I can email it to them. But then I had this other idea yesterday, which was, you know what, if I'm going to go to the effort to email it to them, what's the ultimate outcome I want out of my sending them this URL? Well, what I really want them to do is I want them to socially promote it, right? So then I'm thinking, well, how do I make it easier for them to socially promote it? And so it dawned on me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the witness. So I'm going to say, hey, go to the terms that I've got listed associated with each of those different sessions and remove the spaces and stick a hashtag, a hash mark in front of it. And likewise, go through that and also grab all the companies and the sponsor names and stick an anchor tag in front of that. So that way, when I go to email that person, I can go ahead. And so I'm going to take that template I just showed you, hit preview, and it's going to, here are their email addresses. Here's the subject line for the email. And it says, hey, Michael, Tim, here's your video, here's your session, here's your topic. And then I have Tinderbox automatically create me my hash cloud and anchor cloud. Right. So now I can just hit Command A, copy all of that, go to my email. Where did my email client go? Here it is. Go to my email, paste, oops, sorry. Copy, paste, 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 reformat. And I guarantee if I took more time to do it better, I wouldn't have to do the reformatting, because all the fonts would all that come automatically in. And now I got an email and hit send.
Yeah, very nice.
And that's what we talked about, how I went about doing that. But what the key was this, right? So I'm having Tinderbox automatically generate for me a hash cloud and an anchor tag, which is just reusing information, like, for example, terminology. So if we go back here, this session, its terms, the terminology related to the session were identity, meaning the waters, organizational centric approach. So I'm basically reusing this information, transforming it to be able to use it effectively in another context. Yeah,
no, it's very powerful what you're doing.
Yeah, so that's what we talked about, and the process and how to go about doing that. A couple other things that you may want to know is what I found was Tinderbox will automatically, so if I go ahead and add a new term here, let's give one like, I don't know, I'll make one up, privacy, right? I'm going to add another term here called privacy, right? So by doing this, Tinderbox is going to be automatically updating the terms list in real time. And you see that gets annoying.
I found this on the web.
And what's happening here is it's now getting stuck in some kind of process loop. And the reason why that's happening is one, I've got some code that's doing multiple things that I don't want it to do. And God, I want to semicolon there, right? So it's kind of updating itself in time. And one of the reasons why it's doing that is in the displayed attributes, it's trying to update this field in real time because of the action code. So what I've learned to do is if I hide that, even though the attributes are there, they're associated with the note, but they're not in the displayed attributes. So Tinderbox is not going to be visually trying to refresh the note.
Yeah. Which
is saving processing power. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So I found that to be a little bit helpful. The other thing that I realized was because I don't actually need that action code, that hashtag, some of that stuff until I actually want it. I don't need Tinderbox doing the processing as a rule or an edict. I only need it when I want to actually use it in an email. So I put that action code in the template, not in the rule or the edict.
Okay, makes sense.
Right. And that took me a little bit too, because it was really slowing down when I had this in the code until I realized, well, I don't actually need it. And that's like an on-demand code that I need, not real-time, always available code. So that sticking that in there made it perform a little bit better as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been talking about for the last hour.
Sounds nice. I'll take a look at the video.
Okay. And then since then we've been talking to Phil about the one other thing, I think I've showed you this before too, is, and you'll see it, is a strategy of using what I call project IDs. So in all of my notes, I have like this agent is, the project ID is descended from, so the agent will go out and say, go grab all the notes from this particular project ID and just grab me the media files. And I define project ID as this note's parent. And the parent, its project ID is itself. So if I go here, actually that one's wrong. I'll fix that one later. Oh, here, that's why. So section. So its project ID is, hang on, is itself. Right. So each agent is going to be looking for the parent project. And so here's another example, Phil, for your coursework. So in the case of terminology, I only want the terms. So the terms are related to the entire book. But in terms of summarizing the chapter, I only want the terms that I used in this section of the chapter, not in the entire book. And so what I say, I tell Tinderbox to say, go collect all the terms that are related to this project ID. And remember, this project ID is the parent. So it's going through every one of the notes, grabbing the terms that are related to that project. And then the agent is then just pulling the terms that are part of this chapter. And and again, that's a really effective way to kind of have a universal file, say an entire textbook, but then telling Tinderbox to only summarize stuff for that particular tree you're working with.
Another way of putting it is you can have the giant shoebox of all the stuff you've collected, but what Tinderbox allows you to do is to resort it, regroup it per application, per usage.
Right. So yeah. So for example, on that note, so here are if I go to my resources file, here I have over 307 terms, but for this particular section of this particular chapter, I'm only using about 30 of them. And if this might sound similar, this is the modern version of Zettelkasten.
Yeah, and it is what makes Tinderbox very useful as a tool.
So what are you working on lately, and what did you want to talk about today?
I've mostly been working dealing with clients a lot lately, and I'm just continuing to plow ahead with my networking project and making progress.
Nice.
It's complicated enough. It has to be approached in a slow manner because the conversions I'm performing take so many potential pathways. I've got to do a tremendous amount of testing to make sure that I capture everything. All the edge cases have to be tested.
Right.
So,
right. Very nice.
I'm continuing to stay mostly in action code, so I have not had a chance to play around with exporting. I know that's going to be a very important part of the project down the road, but right now it's all about getting the data in shape in the first place, which is mostly action code.
Correct. And let me just reinforce this one point that we were just talking about, so that, you know, in the future, others that might be seeing this discussion, there is action code, and then there is the ability to do action code in your templates.
Yeah.
You know, and again, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, if you only have context specific actions that you want to take, what you do is you use the export code to trigger action code. So, you know, caret action parentheses. So this is the action that anything happening here allows you to run action code in a template. And then what you can do is then you feed the answers of that into, into your template.
Yeah. One of the things I am working on, and I don't know how far it will go and whether I'll run into intractable problems, but because of what I'm doing and the fact that it will require moving a lot of code to new documents as I work on different networking projects, I'm actually developing a package management system that will.
How does that work?
Well, it'll be you'll build a manifest of all of the functions, action code blocks, the actual notes that are necessary to the structure of the application, the user attribute documentation. Still can't feed that back into Tinderbox the way I'd like to, but getting all that organized and then being able to move the package to a new document and have some functions and other code that will then redistribute the package within that document so that everything works correctly. One of the side products I'm trying to get out of this is to be able to have within my main document backup versions of the functions and other code that I'm working on.
Yeah. So
that I can easily step back if I run into a problem, or compare what I did previously to what I'm currently doing and see if, I find that's a useful exercise to go through in various situations. Or I do something one time, don't do it differently within that code, but then realize the way I did it previously would be useful in some other task I'm going at. So I'm just trying to have a better environment for keeping action code in a very simplified versioned system, and eventually maybe being able to push that out to a diff operation to compare, what's different between this version and that version.
Yeah, I like it.
Those are some things I'm trying to move forward on.
Okay, very cool.
So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, I'd like to, and again, you'll see in the video, Phil and I was showing him my manual way of doing that, right? How do I keep, move between projects or move between files?
Yep.
And invariably it's right now it's a manual process, and and when you're doing it, you'll forget, oh yeah, there's that hidden attribute that I need to support that function.
That's what I'm running into, and that's why I'm trying to add some automation to this to avoid.
Yeah, and the difference between
accidents.
like yours, mine's more of a humanities problem, where yours is actually highly technical server configuration stuff. And if I forget mine, the person's first name just doesn't show up. If you forget in your model, an entire server config could fail, which could have catastrophic problems if it's not correct.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, ultimately, what I'm trying to do is maintain a closed loop, be able to import what's in a network, the configurations of various network devices, analyze that. So for right now, as an example, the configurations actually call on other blocks of configuration. So it's a little bit like a procedure call of some sort. And the way this exists in most network devices, it's just all there. You have to, in your own mind, remember how all these things are linked together. Well, when I bring it into Tinderbox, I can go and construct those links so I can see how all the various pieces connect to each other. And that's very useful from a diagnostics perspective, but also in terms of generating the documentation.
Yeah.
But eventually the idea is to be able to move up to a higher level and generate the configurations from higher level constructs.
Okay.
And have them go back out into the network in that context. So it's a lot of, I think there are a lot of similarities to what you're doing, Michael, but the application context is quite different.
Correct. Well, and Phil and I were just talking about that, as well a bit, in that there's some core fundamentals that apply to everybody, right? Templating, reporting, attribute values. I mean, exactly what you were just talking about is the same thing of what Phil and I were talking about in the context of building a syllabus and making sure that you're linking your course objectives and homework assignments are all kind of associated properly and linked, so you then later can audit them and ensure you achieve what you were looking to achieve. I think, every discipline, every program essentially has those kind of fundamentals, but the context is different. And to your point, in talking about Tinderbox, one of the things I love that you said a while back is, the Tinderbox community allows us to talk about the problems we're solving, not how we're necessarily solving them. And that starting with the problem helps us understand that kind of universality, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I actually pointed someone to that meetup we had, about a month ago, where you picked on poor Bruce Glabe again. and just sort of walked him through thinking about the problem.
Yeah.
And the reason I pointed somebody else to that was I said, isn't it interesting? It really wasn't so much about Tinderbox that you were working with Bruce on. It was mapping what he already knew how to do. I mean, he's brilliant.
Right.
And, he had already solved many of these problems with spreadsheets and Google Docs and things like that. But the translation, how do you set that up? How do you structure that to go into a Tinderbox environment, which is actually fundamentally rethinking about how he structured his information.
Well, and also
that's,
too,
I think, one of the challenges.
Even beyond that, it's not about how do I restructure it in Tinderbox. It's how do I take my problem set and break it into what I'll call it metacognition, into how do I think through the lens of metadata and break everything into its atomic elements. And then once I've done that, essentially you get to the base level of the 4 attributes of a DNA string. And then once you get down to the 4 attributes of the DNA string,
it's so simple, isn't it?
but that's it, right? You then can reconfigure everything, right? Yeah. Because another example of that is, let's think about what all of our, I was writing a textbook for my course the other day, and I was thinking about this concept. And at the end of the day, the world is made up of images, text, and audio. And images, text, and audio can be reconfigured into another concept called video. And if those are the 4 fundamental building blocks of all content. Yes.
Assuming you leave the senses of taste and smell out and
no, but those would no, but I'm saying content for digital media, right? And taste and smell can be abstracted to an attribute, right? It smells like this, it tastes like this. I mean, we won't have that and then presumably in the future, you could feed that attribute to a machine, like what Oscar Mayer did for a marketing campaign a while back, where when your alarm went off every morning, it would waft bacon smell into your room.
Oh, God.
So you'd wake up to the smell of bacon. So imagine if you actually could, so the attribute of bacon versus sausage could be fed as a text attribute to a machine that actually produces a smell of bacon or sausage.
Let's hope we don't ever get there.
All right. But guys, hey, I got another call in about 30 seconds. Yep. But I wanted to say thank you, Phil and Chuck, for showing up for the June 2022 Becker Patreon session. Sorry you missed it a little late, Chuck, but you got it.
May.
Sorry, I'm already in.
I think that's actually one of the problems. Is I'm getting some confusion. I don't know whether it's Patreon causing it or what, but my calendar event was for 10 o'clock.
No, when I looked at it, you were right. It was my fault. I actually have a client meeting that popped up, and so I moved it to 6.
Okay, and I didn't see the email soon enough, and then I was really confused.
Right. So totally my fault, not yours.
Okay, all right.
But you'll get it, and we'll get you back in June.
Okay, great. Talk
All
to you
right,
later.
everyone. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. And again, I really appreciate your patronage and support. It is not unrecognized, and I'm grateful for it.
Good enough.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.